Teddy Bridgewater is your definition of a journeyman quarterback. He played for more NFL teams than I could count. These included the Minnesota Vikings, New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos, Miami Dolphins. Bridgewater was known for his versatility and his ability to adapt with different teams. I guess that's what happens when you're constantly moving from one team to the next. But how good was Teddy Bridgewater actually? Well, if we take a look at his childhood, he was raised in Miami, Florida, and at just 14 years old, his mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was a God-fearing woman, thank the Lord. Dealing with some of these things growing up helped him gain the right mentality to overcome obstacles that he was going to see later down in his career. He didn't know it at the time, but the things that he was going through as a kid would help him in his NFL career. But before the NFL, he went to Miami Northwestern High School and excelled as a quarterback. The quarterback that led this team before Teddy Bridgewater led a team that was named 2007 national champions by USA Today. So talk about starting your high school career with a high standard. So how good was he in high school? Well, in his junior year, he had 2,546 passing yards and 32 touchdowns. That is pretty good. His senior year stats, 2,606 passing yards and 22 touchdowns. He had a combined 32-8 record and never won the state title, but he did come close a few times, losing at the state title and in the semifinals. And of course, he was talented, he was fast, he was quick, he could throw the ball, he was highly recruited and considered one of the top high school quarterbacks in the country. Ranked as the 6th quarterback nationally and the 113th best player nationally. And later down the road, he didn't even realize how much of an impact he had made in his community in high school. They ended up naming the field after him. So now his freshman year is starting right after committing to Louisville, and believe it or not, there was a time where Teddy Bridgewater wanted to quit football his freshman year. He went in, he saw that everyone was really good and he wasn't starting, so this was a bit of a discouragement for him. He was shy, he didn't want to talk to anybody, but after talking with the team's chaplain and taking a second look at the opportunity that he had in front of him, he embraced the challenges and continued to press on. And he would take over as the starting quarterback early in his freshman season during the 4th game. He passed for over 2,000 yards and 14 touchdowns even, and was named Big East Rookie of the Year. And did you know that his nickname was Teddy Two Gloves because he always wore 2 gloves on his hand? This is where he earned that nickname early on in college, and I love it. A quarterback wearing 2 gloves, you don't see that every day. Apparently this helped him grip the ball more, and he just enjoyed doing it. If we fast forward to his sophomore season, he improved significantly, passing for over 3,700 yards and 27 touchdowns. And he led Louisville to an 11-2 record in a Sugar Bowl victory over the Florida Gators, being named Big East Offensive Player of the Year. This guy was Lamar Jackson before there was a Lamar Jackson. And in his junior year in 2013, he continued to excel with over 3,900 passing yards and 31 touchdowns. If we take a step back and look at his college career, he had 9,817 passing yards, 72 touchdowns, and a 68.4% completion rate. That's not a bad resume for a quarterback. But would the success translate into the NFL? Well, let's take a deep dive into his NFL career and find out. As a lot of you may know, he got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in 2014, playing there until 2017. He was drafted 32nd overall in the 1st round. Bridgewater seemed to be a good fit for the Vikings' offensive scheme, which required a quarterback who can make quick decisions and manage the offense effectively as well. And as a rookie, he passed for 2,919 yards and 14 touchdowns and was named Pepsi NFL Rookie of the Year. So this guy had a pretty good start in the NFL. In 2015, things still seemed to be going up. He led the Vikings to an 11-5 record and an NFC North title. He passed for over 3,200 yards and 14 touchdowns. But things aren't always going to go up in your journey. You see, he suffered a severe knee injury. He dislocated his knee and tore his ACL in 2016. And this was even in a non-contact drill during practice. This would sideline him for nearly 2 years. How are you going to come back from this? Well, we're about to find out. He missed the entire 2016 season due to injury. He returned in 2017, but played sparingly for the Vikings since the Vikings were taking a different approach and signed Sam Bradford and Case Keenum as quarterbacks. Things aren't looking very good for Bridgewater at this point. So the Vikings decided to pivot, and the New York Jets of all teams would pick up Teddy Bridgewater in 2018. So since Bridgewater did not have a clear path to play in Minnesota, the Jets offered him a fresh start and an opportunity to compete for a starting job. He played well in the preseason, but was traded to the New Orleans Saints before the regular season even started. The Saints were looking for a reliable backup for their star quarterback, Drew Brees. At the time, Brees was still performing at a high level, but he was also nearing the end of his career. In that season, Teddy Bridgewater would play sparingly, seeing limited action. But the following season in 2019, he stepped in as a starter for 5 games when Brees was injured. He led the Saints to a 5-0 record in those games, throwing for 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. Unfortunately, the New Orleans Saints got kicked out early in the playoffs that year. In my opinion, he proved his capability as a starting quarterback and maintained his reputation as a reliable quarterback. But things kept on changing for him. In 2020, he signed a 3-year, $63 million contract to be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. One of the key factors in Bridgewater signing with the Panthers was the presence of Joe Brady as the team's offensive coordinator. Brady had worked with Bridgewater during their time together with the New Orleans Saints, and at that time, the Panthers were moving on from Cam Newton, a longtime starter for them, and they were in need of a new leader for their offense. And Teddy Bridgewater responded with over 3,700 yards and 15 touchdowns. So he showed that he had the skill, but it still doesn't really make up the fact that the team went 5-11 that year. And in 2021, the Panthers traded for Sam Darnold from the New York Jets, signaling their intention to move in a different direction at the quarterback position. And also, they were paying Teddy Bridgewater a ton of money. You're also releasing a bit of financial obligation there as well. So where does Bridgewater end up next? The Broncos, and he was named as the starting quarterback. See, the Broncos were in search of a reliable quarterback to compete with Drew Lock for the starting position. Drew Lock had shown inconsistency in his performance, and the Broncos wanted to create a competitive environment to improve their quarterback play. And Teddy Bridgewater did pretty well, passed over 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns in 14 games. Not terrible, but this guy just could not catch a break. There's been a lot of highlights online of him getting hit hard a lot, and this is no different. He suffered a concussion late in that season and missed the final 3 games. And of course, Russell Wilson comes along in 2022. Wilson's arrival significantly changed the Broncos quarterback landscape, making Bridgewater pretty much expendable at this point. The Broncos were looking to secure a high caliber, proven quarterback to lead their team, and Wilson fit the role perfectly, but not Bridgewater. Alright, I promise this is the last team, I'm pretty sure. 2022, Bridgewater signs with his hometown team, the Miami Dolphins. He signed to backup quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, and the Miami Dolphins were looking for an experienced backup quarterback to support and mentor their young starter, and Bridgewater seemed to fit the role perfectly. He's had several years in the NFL at this point, so he made a pretty ideal candidate for the backup position. And a big part of this move is that Tua faced injury concerns early in his career, so signing Bridgewater provided the Dolphins with a reliable backup who could step in and perform competently if Tua were to miss a few games due to injury. And plus, you have to consider Bridgewater is from Miami, Florida, and returning to play for his hometown team could have been an appealing aspect for him personally. He didn't see much production when he played for Miami. I mean, he only had a little over 600 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, which is pretty limited action, but you have to consider that he was not the starting quarterback. He was the backup quarterback. I said it was the last team, but I lied. He signed with the Lions in 2023, but then he announced his retirement later that year in December. So how good was he after all of this? After over a decade in the league and playing for 6 teams, he's recorded over 15,000 passing yards and 86 total touchdowns, which in my opinion puts him as a mid-tier quarterback. Let's compare him to Lamar Jackson, veteran who has been in the NFL for 6 seasons now and has already surpassed the numbers of passing yards and touchdowns. And he has recently got a lot of attention on social media after becoming the head coach of his old high school team, the Miami Northwestern Bulls, and he actually just held their first spring scrimmage not too long ago. So it's been interesting to see Teddy Bridgewater and his career develop over the years. I think it's great that he's giving back to the community and his old high school. I'm rooting for this team, and hopefully you are too. If not, that's okay. Smash the like button, comment what videos you want to see in the future. Appreciate the support, and I'll see you in the next video.